For now, as he sat sipping his espresso and watching the endless parade of statuesque blondes on the défilé of the Arbat in the bright fall sunshine, Charlie wasn't feeling too hard done by. Glancing at his watch, he directed his thoughts to the night ahead. It had been a few days since he received the email from an old high school buddy who was in town for business and suggesting a get-together. It had sounded like a good idea at first, but Charlie found himself questioning the wisdom of agreeing to the outing now that it was imminent. It had been more than 20 years since he'd last seen Sean Mercer, and it wasn't as though they had been best friends even back then. On the other hand, he had no other plans. And how often was he going to bump into a fellow Newfoundlander in Moscow? From the brief email exchange, it sounded like Mercer was an executive of some sort with the Calgary-based oil company, married with kids. It seemed at odds with Charlie's recollection of Mercer, the party animal, but he supposed that people change. It occurred to him that he would have to gloss over, if not completely avoid, the topic of his own failed experiment in marriage, a thought that brought a frown to his face. But just as a gloom had begun to descend on him, it was dispersed by a cloud of Chanel that preceded a stunning brunette in a canary-yellow mini-dress and matching platform sandals. As she sauntered by Charlie's table, she cast a fleeting smile that he could have sworn was directed at him. Hope springs eternal. Picking up his newspaper, Charlie glanced at the image of a familiar face under the caption, "The Duma's Mr. Clean." Even as a newcomer to Moscow, Charlie had heard plenty about Pavel Zhukov, the popular former Federal Security Service agent turned politician, and his highly public campaign to clean up politics in the Russian legislature. One look at the crooked grin, though, and Charlie had to wonder if the guy was legit. But that was the Russian contradiction, and not just in politics. The shadier you were, the more you were revered, at least from what Charlie had seen so far. His last-minute cross-posting, direct from Havana to Moscow, "Do not pass go, do not stop" in Ottawa, meant that the usual pre-posting briefings and cultural and language training hadn't begun until his arrival, and he was only now starting to get a sense of the city and how things worked here. Fortunately, it had been a quiet summer at the embassy, and the new ambassador wouldn't arrive until Monday. Charlie didn't know much about her, other than the fact that she had been in communications and was a close friend of the Foreign Affairs Deputy Minister, which he figured could be good or bad. He would try his best to make a good first impression and hope that what he had learned on his last posting would take care of the rest. Considering that he had been destined for a boring headquarters position in consular policy, Charlie felt lucky to be posted anywhere at all. There was a general shortage of qualified consular personnel, but the sudden illness of the previous candidate for the Moscow job had been a lucky break. Being a much bigger operation, here there would be a half-dozen people doing the work that Charlie and his Havana colleague, Drew Landon, had shared in Cuba. He wasn't entirely sure what area he would be asked to focus on, but Charlie was hoping for less administrative work and more consular. For now, he was content to try and fill in the considerable gaps in his knowledge of the mysterious and sprawling old city he would call home for the next 2 years or more. As for his former home, though there was little in Ottawa for him anymore, he had been buoyed to discover just a week ago that he would be returning in mid-October for a conference. Fall was his favorite time of year, and he hoped he wouldn't be too late for the colors of Gatineau Park. Abandoning his half-hearted perusal of the newspaper, Charlie stretched and stifled a yawn, drained after the long walk around the Kremlin. Looking at his watch, he decided he had plenty of time to head back to his apartment for a quick nap before meeting Mercer at 7. He felt a creeping unease as he weaved his way back toward the river, but wrote it off as fatigue and the gathering of clouds in the near distance. By the time he reached the now familiar Obidensky Lane, the sun was gone, swallowed whole by an immense cloud dark enough to portend turbulent weather ahead. Chapter 2. Charlie walked into the extravagant lobby of the Marriott Royal Aurora and took a seat on one of the plush couches, opposite a trio of sharks in bold pinstripes huddled around a laptop. Just around the corner from the Bolshoi and the exclusive shops of Tverskaya Street, the hotel attracted upscale business travelers, both Western and Russian. He unzipped his jacket and leaned back, taking in the multicolored stained glass of the atrium ceiling, which was centered by a clear, circular skylight. A peal of laughter brought him back.